frog in it, they say.
Oh, you haven't had your coffee this morning?
I did. I will have my second one after the show. So.
Despite your coffee, you still have frog in your throat.
Well, mind you, I am half on caffeine, so I am.
When are you going to go off completely caffeine free, because Ramadan is just around the corner?
Just about 3 or 4 days before Ramadan.
Why? Should be a week before.
Well, it will be probably 5 days by the time it gets to. Good morning, assalamu alaikum everybody. My name is Henrietta Savati and I am the co-founder of Barefoot Institute with my husband, and we are in London.
Indeed, we are in London, but you can join us from wherever you are. We have people from Indonesia, Malaysia, America, Australia. We've got people joining us from New Zealand. We've got people joining us from England, of course, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. We've got people from all over the world.
Hungary, Spain.
That's right.
We have all the people from Europe.
Alhamdulillah. Do spread the word, of course. It is because I think the more you share, the more we learn. And of course, the more we learn, the better our family gets. It's all about marriage. If you want to get married and stay married, this is the show.
And we wanted to bring a new kind of conversations about marriage, because it's very easy to just go into the halal haram of marriage. But I think the nuances of the conversation should be a little bit more highlighted, which is why we do this show. So welcome. I can't see the comments, so
don't worry about it. Comments will come as soon as we start.
Just let's see if you're coming. So today we have a really interesting topic, because we have been thinking about what would be most interesting for you to think about, talk about just before a couple of weeks before Ramadan. So we thought
actually the most important part of the discussion today is bringing up stories of people that we get to hear, with anonymous, of course. I don't want to make them public to you, but the gist of the story is what we were going to share, right?
I was just about going on it, so
go ahead.
So we have got some stories for you.
I was giving you a relief through your throat. I could hear you were struggling.
Very kind of you. Actually, I am struggling today with my throat.
I can talk for the world if you want me to.
I know you can. I know. So go ahead.
So let's give you the introduction. So, for example, what are the most common stories or most common struggles that we have in our books, marital counseling books, as I call it? Well, I can give you a few, and you can give us a few. But you deal mostly with people's other problems rather than relationship.
Well, let's set the scene first. I think, what do we mean by marital problems? Because what ends up happening often, people call up and they say, well, I have got this marriage problem, and after 5 minutes conversation, we are pretty good at sussing it out that it's actually nothing to do with the marriage, it's to do with an individual problem. So the first thing first is we need to set the tone and set the idea that some issues are absolutely marital problems, but there are a lot of issues which are individual problems. So we need to learn how to separate that first.
Well, that's the solution.
No, but this is how you start working with couples, right? So you can't blame the marriage for everything.
Some people do.
And you have to take responsibility.
It's my husband's fault most of the time. The woman always thinks, right? It's my husband's fault.
Well, we know that it's always the wife's fault.
I've got stomachache. I've got spots on my face. That's my husband's fault. Somebody said the other day, how is it possible? Well, he's giving me stress, and that's causing me spots.
Yeah.
And I said to her, and what is it? Let me understand your diet. I asked, this is what I asked her. What do you eat? And she eats junk food, lots of coffee, lots of drinks, fizzy drinks especially. I said to her, my dear sister, I don't mean to be rude, but your husband has nothing to do with your spots. It's you. Your body is taking all this junk food and you're giving your body such awful start. Well, how do you expect? But she was blaming her husband. So there is a blame culture. That's what we want to deal with today. We've already got from the woods, peace be upon you both. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Or wa alaikum peace, as you say.
Wa alaikum hello.
Well, welcome to our program. If you have just joined us, what are the most common problems couples face? Let's see if you can give us your ideas. I know you're listening to this, whether you're married or unmarried. What do you think are the most common problems we face, or we hear from couples that are facing troubles and challenges in their lives? Go on, let's hear from you. Before we start rolling them off our tongue, why don't we get you to list them on the screen right now? Go ahead. Who would like to be the first one listing the first problem that they think couples face and that needs to be addressed today? But we have already started the blame culture.
That's one of them. But I also want to bring in the idea that every couple thinks that they are the only one going through the problem. You see, when they come, oh, you probably haven't seen this. Our issue is so complicated. Our situation is so special. It is and it isn't. So let's talk about taking away the edge of, yes, every couple has an individual struggle, but very often we blow it up in our head and we are thinking about in such a way that it's how special, how unique it is. Actually, there are some underlining threads amongst most couples, and it all comes back to mindset, which is something else we will also talk about today.
Inshallah. So what is it that you think couples face most often, and what do they get in touch with us for? Number one, in-laws.
Is it your number one?
No, I'm just saying. I'm just listing them now. It's not in order of priority.
Oh, okay.
In-laws. I can't live with the in-laws. My in-laws are horrible. My mother-in-law is terrible. My father-in-law is controlling. My blah, blah, blah. In-laws get the brunt of a lot of trouble. So that's one.
Okay. What I get most often is that I don't get what I want from my marriage. I just keep giving to my husband. I'm not getting anything back. So something about imbalance of contentment, living together.
Not getting enough back.
Not getting enough love back, enough respect,
So
enough
there's
appreciation.
there's a need there. There's a neediness. So you get a lot of needy people who are coming to us for help and support. So, okay, in-laws, neediness. Communication is a major one. People can't communicate. So they can talk and argue until cars come home, but they can't communicate. And part of the communication problem is that they can't resolve their conflicts. They live with resentments for years and years. Resentments is carried by them for so long that they feel so burdened. Okay, so that's what number is that? Number 3.
3. Number 4 is, I knew on day 1 this marriage is not going to work. I persevered. This is our year 10, and I'm still not getting anywhere.
That's signs of that is a major sign of insanity. Do you know the major sign of insanity is?
Keep doing the same thing
Again and again.
without changing.
Without changing, but expecting a different outcome. You keep. Rasulullah said something very beautiful. A Muslim does not get bitten from the same hole twice. And this couple we're talking about they've been struggling, and they have been bitten from the same hole for 10 years, but they haven't changed. They're still going on about the same thing again and again and again, really boring the life out of each other. So how do we cope with such a challenge? We're talking about behind the scene. What happens behind the closed doors of those couples? What are they struggling with? What are you struggling with? Go on, brothers and sisters.
It's very quiet today. So
yes, people are sleeping. Come on.
Oh, we changed the time, by the way, so maybe they think it's still 9 o'clock and it's already 10.
Oh, that's right. They will wake up to realize, oops, we've missed the program. Well, you have missed the program.
It will be recorded, so you can have a look at it on record.
On our YouTube or Facebook page. Both of them are on my page. My name, Ajmal Masroor's page. You'll find them. We'll get to connect. Finance is a big stressor. Yes, from the woods. Why do you need to worry about finance if you're living in the woods? From the woods, it says, right?
Oh, no. That's
I like the name. If you live in the woods, don't worry about finance. You live off the woods. Alhamdulillah. But it's a good point. Finance.
Yeah. Financial struggles, yes.
Couples struggle to...
When they are poor or when they are too rich.
Nargis said to us, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Nargis.
Wa rahmatullah.
No ponytail today. Oh, there is. Sorry, I thought you left your hair out.
Where is that?
I think she was the one who talked about your ponytail last week.
Did she? Or she's jealous of my ponytail, maybe.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning. I think she was the one. I'm not 100% sure.
Let's not accuse Nargis of that. Nargis, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining. Khalid Muhammad Abdul Mueed. Why is your name written in Bengali? Write in English if you don't mind. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Welcome. And Taslima Musa said complacency.
Complacency. Tell us a little bit more about complacency. What do you mean?
Means people don't get on with the work. They're complacent. Oh, yeah, tomorrow. Procrastinate. Oh, lazy. Slightly can't be bothered.
I know the meaning of the word, but I wanted to know a little bit more.
I thought you didn't know the meaning.
I do know the meaning. I am a writer, so I know words.
Sarwar Alam says, number 4, we celebrate our 26th marriage anniversary day before yesterday without your gift. That was accepted. Now listen, Sarwar, if you were celebrating your 26th marriage anniversary, we'll be celebrating our 27th, no, 19th
on Tuesday.
Marriage anniversary on Tuesday. So why don't you and your wife come over to our house with a massive box of gifts, whatever gift you want to give us, and we will receive it from the garden outside, as you are not allowed inside, of course, and we'll celebrate like that. No?
Okay, but you are not here, so
he can
don't organize it over my time. Anyway, Assalamu alaikum, Luciana Gilan. I have many friends that
nice ponytail, brother Ajmal Masroor, said Khalid Muhammad.
I'm reading something.
Oh, so sorry. Go for it.
I have many friends that are being blamed every day because of their financial problems and gambling. So basically, their husband is blaming them for every single wrong thing that happens to him, which I don't think it's right.
Is he gambling?
Who?
Is that what it says?
Oh, it's a description of some of the friends that the husbands are gambling and it's financial stress and financial irresponsibility.
Mismanagement. Taslima Musa says, taking each other for granted. Very good point. Yes. Shiba Khanam says, Salamu alaikum to both of you. Sarwar Alam says, you are still 7 years behind, unfortunately. Sarwar will never catch up with you. 7 years will always be the case. You will die 7 years ahead of us, I think, at this rate.
Allahu Alam. Who and when?
We will wait for you to join us on our wedding celebration, on our anniversary celebration, and we will do it together. Since we missed yours, come and join us on Wednesday or Tuesday, whichever day. Tuesday is our anniversary. So anyway, let's move on and discuss other issues. So what have we listed so far?
So we have listed financial struggles. We have listed
in-laws, communication,
in-law communication, financial mismanagement,
complacency, laziness.
Yeah.
This person needs to explain a bit more.
Neediness.
Salwar, what struggle do you have with your wife? I'm going to ask him directly. What struggle do you have with your wife, and what struggle does she have with you? I know what struggle she has with you because I know you well. But I want to know what struggle you have with your wife. Give us a message, Mr. Sarwar. We will be more than happy to discuss it. Let's start with the first one we've identified so far, which is to do with blame game. Why is it that people blame each other or others for their problems? Go on, explain that for us, please.
Well, I think it's human nature, first of all, that we always blame the other person first. Now, here is my thinking process about this. For some things, we do have to point out. But we can't blame for everything. We can't blame the other person. But there's also the other extreme. We can't take responsibility for all the wrong. And this is, I think, a lot of women do this, is that we just give an excuse like, oh, it's going to change, it's going to happen. We don't set clear boundaries from the very beginning of the marriage. Therefore, things go out of hand. And after 5 years, 10 years down the line, we are complaining because we didn't set firm boundaries at the beginning. So here is a scenario. When you get married and you see that something isn't working before marriage, it's very likely that it's not going to work after marriage. So the red flags are up very early on. And if you don't actually address those red flags, and I'm not saying you need to throw out the person because there are too many red flags. No, it's about visit your understanding of what are those red flags and how am I going to address them. Everybody has red flags, by the way. Everybody, when we met, you knew some of the things that you will not like about me. On day one, day two.
Well, I didn't know on the day one or day two. I got to know about them later on.
Yeah, but you have a sense of, is there anything that you... I did. I knew.
You couldn't have known.
I knew some of the things in my spirit. I knew that it's not going to work for me.
Okay, well, you're still here after 19 years.
But so the red flags aren't there just for them to chuck them out. It's literally looking at the idea of, can I work with this? Is it something that's non-negotiable for me, or can I negotiate around it and it gives me an opportunity?
I find blame game very very telling, actually. When you start blaming others and not take responsibility, I've seen it in my own life. When I have blamed others and I've not taken responsibility for my own actions, it has always been because either I have been so ashamed of myself that I'd like to shift it and not talk about it, or I'm so completely, what's the word? I'm looking for a word which describes being oblivious, not even oblivious.
Insecure?
No, I don't want to. I'm not even aware of it. I'm so unaware of these things that I don't want to take responsibility for it. Brothers and sisters, problem begins with us individually. It doesn't begin with our wife or our husbands. It's our problem. And this is what we began with. So when you come into a relationship, when you and your wife are arguing, think about it. Is it my issue or is it our collective issue? Have I brought this from outside, or have I brought this, has it become as a consequence of our marriage? Most of the time, you brought it from outside. When I was training as a counselor, marriage counselor with Relate, the first thing they taught us is that the baggage that you bring in your marriage is the same baggage that you leave with your marriage unless you fix them.
I just say, you don't take the luggage, you are the luggage.
Yes, of course.
This is what I say.
You are the luggage, indeed. Sarwar says he's got lots of fights with his wife, lots of it. So Sarwar, book in counselling session for us. I'm not sure if we would ever accept
No, we won't, because he's a friend, so you can't.
Asqarini Hasbi says, Assalamu alaikum from Indonesia. Khaled Mueid still says, advance congratulations. Thank you very much. To both of us, thank you very much again. Farida Haq says, Assalamu alaikum, have a blessed day, thank you. Asqarini Hasbi says, agree.
judge, excuse, blame is the center of a problem in any relationship.
Jeb, like that.
Yeah, very good.
Judge,
Thank you.
excuse, and blame.
Blame.
Judge, Jeb, very well done. Are you marriage counselor? I think you should be as Qarini. And Sarwar Alam says, trouble number 1, long-time relationship. Number 2, we are happy. Number 3, we have lovely children. Number 4, we have no complaints against each other. Number 5, we never receive any gifts from you.
Oh. And that's damaging your relationship. I'm really sorry. Really sorry.
Oh, Sarwar, it doesn't sound like you're having any troubles whatsoever. May Allah keep you together forever. We say Ameen.
Ameen, inshallah. So let's go back to blame and us being blind, because blaming is a very easy game.
Do you remember that when we were having dinner with a friend of ours and his wife suddenly bit into something in her salad, and she said to him, Richard, what is this? He goes, what? So she took out from her mouth a tooth. She goes, Richard, what is your tooth doing in my salad? Richard is quiet. He doesn't say anything. Eventually, his wife says, oh my God, Richard, I'm really sorry. I've lost a tooth. So Richard said, and you blame me for losing your own tooth. And he said, what is my tooth doing in your salad? We couldn't stop laughing. It was such a classic, subhanAllah. So this is the problem you're describing, blame game.
It's always the other person's fault first. And I think that's a very dangerous mindset, actually. A couple of things that we need to unpack here. I think one of the things that we need to really understand is, are we doing this because this is what we learned in a relationship?
Because our mother and father...
Because my mom and dad were doing the same thing.
Blaming each other, blaming the cat next door.
Or anyone, but never taking responsibility for their behavior. I think it's a mindset. And if we don't have the mindset of thinking about, am I blaming... Am I doing it out of it's a blind spot, literally. Am I doing it because that's what I have seen?
It may not be blind spot. It could be an excuse. It could be a smoke screen to hide behind their insecurities, their fears, or being found out, or being truly discovered. It could be all sorts. So stop blaming each other. Remember when Adam ﷺ and Hawa were thrown out of the heavens, what dua did they make? This is the second time I'm talking about this to everybody. What dua did Adam and Hawa make when they were thrown out of the heavens? Why were they thrown out of the heavens? Because they disobeyed Allah. Why did they disobey Allah? Because shaitan whispered into them. That's what the Quranic verse says. Shaitan came and told them about the tree and the greatness of the tree, etc., etc. But they ate the fruit which Allah had forbidden. And what is the dua he made? His dua is very beautiful. He said, Rabbana zalamna anfusana. Oh Allah, I have wronged against my own self. What did Adam do straight away? He acknowledged his mistake. He took responsibility for it, and he did not blame anybody else. Because he took responsibility for it, because he was remorseful and he told Allah that I'm taking responsibility for it, Allah forgave him. In life is the same, my brothers and sisters. In your relationship, stop blaming your wife or your husband for the misery and the troubles that you're facing. You wake up in the morning, you've got bad mood, you blame your wife. You wake up in the morning, you've got a headache, you blame your husband. It's none of their business, it's your problem. Don't blame anybody else, take responsibility. Maybe you did not drink enough water yesterday and that's why you've got a headache. Maybe you did not sleep last night well enough because you were playing with your phone the whole night. Maybe that's why you didn't sleep well. Brothers and sisters, whatever it is, stop blaming the others and take responsibility. And when you start taking responsibility, what do you see in your relationship?
Well, you know, we always say this to couples, that you need to create a distance between you, your partner, and the relationship. There has to be some space in between. When you are blaming, there is literally no space to respect or see the other person for who she is or what she is. There's no way of understanding. There's no way of creating that neutral space where you safe space and look at somebody and say, actually, I don't like the behavior, but do I start blaming the person and point my fingers like, you are a horrible person and I can't live with you? And I think if we perpetuate ourselves into this kind of thinking, day after day, the anger is just building up, and we never actually take a step back and think about, what is it that I don't like? What is my responsibility in that? And how we're going to work on it together.
So separate the issues. Create a safe space. The sakina that you talk about, sakina, sounds like somebody's name. Yes, it is somebody's name, but in the Quran, Allah talks about sakina. You can call for sakina all you like, but you have to create sakina in your relationship, which means a safe space. Okay, that's number one. Let's move on. A few people have made comments. A.T. Khan says, friends and wrong company, very good point. And Khalid Mu'eed says, please talk about how to deal with being angry with each other about everyday issues, household matters.
I don't think you are angry with each other about household issues. I think that's just an expression of another anger.
Another issue.
Yeah. So if you're continuously arguing about household chores and who is doing what, and that is just a symptom of something else.
I had a
You
couple
can't
last
be.
week that were arguing about kitchen towels.
Right.
Did you hear this?
It's a classic case, isn't it?
They were arguing about kitchen towels, brothers and sisters, whether the kitchen towel should be hanging on a big hook or a small hook. That was their argument.
Right.
They argued, they nearly fell out with one another. And I asked them, is it really about kitchen towel or is it about control? And believe you me, it came down to control. One of them wanted to take control of everything. Didn't have any belief or trust in the other. But the other was also responsible. The other, and I'm not going to say husband or
Which
wife,
one?
the other was actually, what I learned from this is that the other made it possible for that to happen in that relationship. At the beginning of the relationship,
So there's a doormat.
behaved like a doormat. Everything needed validation. Everything needed approval. Everything needed permission. And only then would that person go and do things. So automatically, they had given over the control element to an extreme degree to the partner. And now they're surprised their partner is unable to live without having that control. So let's go back. In-laws was the second one on our list. The first one was blame. The second one was in-laws. We talked about in-laws a lot. But what's the bottom line to in-laws that we gather from our two conversations?
Can't live together. Can't live or won't live together.
I think it won't. It's more like won't live together. You can live together. I've seen people live together. You don't know how to live, and therefore I don't want to live. I know people who are putting guns to their husbands, especially husbands' heads, saying, "You leave now. You leave your mum's house now, or I leave you." Now that is absolutely a ridiculous situation to be. Absolutely ridiculous. Why would you even do that to anybody? So, brothers and sisters, whatever trouble you are having with in-laws, we have talked about it. Go back on our YouTube channel and you'll find, on my YouTube channel, you'll find the in-laws conversation in details. We've talked about it over 2 sessions. You can learn from it, you can share about it. My bottom line is, your in-laws are parents of your wife or your husband. Treat them like that, because you treat your parents differently. Surely, with more respect and more dignity and acceptance. You will not throw your parents out on the street. You will not abandon your parents, would you? Why would you do that? Why would you insist your husband or your wife should do that for their parents? Why? It's an absolutely cruel, inhumane, barbaric thing to do. Yes, a parent-in-law could be abusive, I understand that. Deal with that abuse rather than throw them out on the street. It's like the English saying, don't throw the baby with the bathwater.
Interesting, nobody mentioned in-laws actually on the list today.
No, nobody did. We did.
So we did, but maybe people don't think that's a real issue.
Maybe not. Okay, we can move on. A.T. Khan said what? Could you
talk about not being able to get over the past childhood traumas, depression, and bringing it into your marriage? Certain behaviors that you were instilled into you, not being able to let go. Well, this is really an interesting one, because this is where it becomes it's your individual issue. It's nothing to do with your marriage. You have to deal with that issue anyway, whether you are remaining married or not. The trauma, the conditioning, it's good for your healing. Now, if with that healing you show up in better shape in the relationship, that's well and good. You stay in your marriage. If it doesn't, at least you're not taking it to your next relationship.
the most not just the sad, but the most heartbreaking issue here is that there are people in this world who abuse and inflict trauma on all of us as we grow up. Unfortunately, it does happen. I have many traumas from my past that I have had to deal with, but I had to deal with them. Without dealing with them, I couldn't be fully aware of my own emotions, because I was creating a cover, a smoke screen around my emotions, not wanting to know them because they're painful. I was talking to one young girl yesterday who was suffering from a terrible bulimia and anorexia, very, very bad state. And I asked, what's the issue? She said, I'm very angry. I said, why are you angry? And she couldn't identify why the anger was. But I knew why she was angry. So I said to her, you know what? You are hiding your pain using anger. She goes, really? I said, yes. And we pushed and pushed and pushed a bit. And it quite quickly became clear that yes, she was, but she wasn't willing to go there because it was too painful. Very painful. So past traumas could be very painful. Unless you are able to unpack your past trauma individually in your own time and space, you will make your relationship toxic.
And I also want to say that I don't think there is anyone in this world who doesn't have some sort of trauma. And I think it's a really interesting thing to think about is we think everyone is getting it all together, everyone is so wonderful, everyone has an amazing childhood. And yes, maybe you had an amazing childhood, we didn't, but if you had, well and good. At some point you will be tested and traumatized, and you will go through something so difficult and so almost impossible that will have an impact and a stamp on your soul. So you do need to become very comfortable dealing with your own self, because otherwise you can't deal with the relationship. And this comes up with people who are getting married second time, third time. They keep taking the same stuff into the next relationship,
and they wonder why.
Why am I struggling with the same thing? Well, actually the issue wasn't your husband or your wife. It was you not dealing with something that was inside of you. So for example, neediness. When somebody keeps asking for the same thing over, I'm not being respected, I'm not given my rights, I'm not getting what I want, and then they move into another relationship, and after 5-6 months down the line they recognize the same pattern. Oh, this man is also, woman is not giving me what I want. But actually it's not because of the circumstances, it's because of you. You don't know how to ask for it, or you don't know how to set boundaries, or you don't know how to claim yourself, because then we start molding ourselves. Oh, with the second marriage I'm going to give a bit of allowance, it will change, and we run into the same pattern. So individual trauma is very important for everyone to deal with.
Some people think it's not Islamic to unpack the past and bring up the past, especially if it's been a sin, etc. If it's a sin that you've committed, it still leaves a mark of trauma. Brothers and sisters, every time we sin, Rasulullah said a dot appears on our heart. Metaphorically speaking, as well as literally speaking, a dot appears on our heart. And that dot remains unless we cleanse it. And what's the way to cleanse it? By tawbah, asking Allah to forgive. But the concept of tawbah has been misunderstood. Arabic word tawbah means to do a U-turn. What does it really mean? It means to make a promise that I will not continue with my old pattern, old behavior, old past, old trauma. I will deal with them. I'll do a U-turn. I'll get a polished cloth, clean it and polish it and clean it so clean that now my heart has become clean. So Rasulullah said, when your dot appears on your heart because you have done a sin and you do tawbah, do a U-turn, which means you have promised not to repeat it because you've understood the consequence of your action, you've taken responsibility, asked Allah for forgiveness, you are now ready to face the world. The trauma that we all carry is the same. If I've been inflicted with pain, unless I would deal with the pain, unpack my pain, understand where the pain is coming from, rationalize it, accept that this is what has happened, either forgive the person who has caused the pain or confront the person who has caused the pain, and then move on, you will not be able to overcome the pain. You cannot bury the pain. You cannot ignore the trauma. You can't think it will just go away. Don't behave like an ostrich when it comes to past traumas. Deal with it. If you don't deal with it, it will come to bite you pretty badly on a place that you don't like.
I always compare it to this to driving in fog. You know, when you're driving on the motorway and it's dark and you see a big foggy patch in front of you and you are really scared because maybe you don't have enough control over the car, or you don't know, you can't see the cars, you don't know where you're going. You start going into the fog, which looked like a really scary place, but as you go along, by the time you turn back, after a couple of 100 meters, you turn back, the fog is behind you. And with your headlights on, you had enough space to see enough not to have a car accident. Trauma is like this. You don't have to be consumed by it, but you have to go through it to be able to come out on the other side.
Good analogy. Very good analogy.
Because if you are scared at the beginning, you will avoid it, but it doesn't take you anywhere because you will have other foggy patches coming up.
Of course, because there is bigger fog coming up just ahead. As if somebody told you that, you would not have avoided the first one.
Yeah.
And this is the truth of life, my brothers and sisters. Hand on heart, who doesn't have a trauma in their life?
I don't think there's anyone in this world.
We all have a trauma in our life. The issue here is how do you deal with it? My idea and our experience tells us from our training and our thought processes we've learned, if you've got a trauma, deal with it. In other words, or go and unpack it at your own time through professional and supportive environment and deal with it. Don't lambast your wife or your husband with it. Don't burden anyone else with it. It's your problem. If your wife and your husband are supportive, that's fine, no problem. I know one couple, the wife was sexually abused by somebody when she was younger. So they did not have a relationship as such because they were really having a struggle. The husband was patient, stayed and waited for many years until she was able to overcome that. That's a very supportive environment. If you, husband or a wife, can support one another, brilliant. But don't expect your partner to help you or become your therapist, because if they become your therapist, that's a recipe for disaster. Don't use your spouse as your therapist. Yes, as a supportive. What's the difference between a therapist and a supportive partner? So when you have a broken leg, if you get a broken leg, what do you put over your broken leg? A plaster. The plaster is your therapy. And what do you put around your arm?
The crutch.
Crutches. You put crutches over around your arm so that you can support your leg. But you cannot heal your leg with the crutches. And you cannot step on the plaster by itself. So put the plaster on first. In other words, get therapy first and then look for support. Don't reverse it and don't change that. Anyway, let's move on. Misbah says salam, and Luciana says 100% true. I've been through it and I'm still
on it
in
now.
it.
It's a lifelong learning, isn't it? We continuously learn every day, and hopefully we are better today than we were yesterday. So that's the whole purpose.
So, brothers and sisters, we've spoken for half an hour. Let's introduce our book for this Take a Break. This is your book. This is my book. Let's talk about it. So, obviously, with Ramadan coming around the corner, I would like you all to consider buying a book like this and reading it and giving it as a gift. A time for your spiritual connection, perhaps, a more deeper connection with your relationship. I wrote this book not that long ago called 10 Steps to Marriage.
You wrote it last Ramadan, actually, didn't you?
Well, completed it, but didn't publish it until this year.
Yes, but you were working on it last Ramadan.
Yeah, finished it last Ramadan.
Yeah.
So the edit and everything was ready by last Ramadan, but getting it all laid out and printed, etc. I think we did it on October, my birthday, the 19th, when we launched it.
When it was published.
Correct. So, brothers and sisters, I'd like you to buy this book if you don't mind. Where is it available? Our website, and it's on the screen. We are, and I'm advertising for the mosque also to donate, but that's fine. So, brothers and sisters, please buy the book from barefootinstitute.com/, what? Bookstore.
Yes.
And your book?
My book is very different in nature. My book is called Heartsmart, and it's to do with emotional intelligence and neuroscience. I trained in neuroscience with my coaching work, so I actually deal with individuals, mainly trying to help them change their mind about things, because we believe that who can't change their mind, they can't change anything in the world. So this is one of the things. It's partly a travelogue in different countries where I lived. I think it's really interesting, and it's full of information about neuroscience, particularly looking at emotions and the neuroscience of emotions. So
Good.
you can also buy the two books on the website together or individually. It's called Heartsmart.
Please do, because that we appreciate your help and support. Share it with other people. Let's get back to the issue. So we had identified blame, we've identified in-laws, we've discussed neediness, and now we're talking about communication. So a lot of people have this problem of not knowing how to communicate. Mukhtar says, Assalamu alaikum. It's a very important topic in our community. Yes, indeed.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Misbah says, Salam to everyone. Wa alaikum assalam. You can send your messages. You can send your questions. You can share your story. You can just simply make points if you want. Or you can even be critical of what we are saying. It's no problem. Communication.
Communication behind the scenes.
Yes.
So what are your 3 communication related problems that couples come to you with?
My husband doesn't talk to me.
At all?
He's blank. He's very functional. He doesn't express his emotions. Doesn't know how to express his emotions.
Okay.
And when I express my emotions, he runs away from me. He's emotionally incompetent.
Or unavailable.
Or unavailable. That's number 1. Number 2, my wife talks too much.
The 2 is connected maybe in some ways. Like maybe that's why he runs away, because the wife talks too much.
It's like that joke. Husband called his wife and said, can I have a word with you? In return, she had a paragraph with him.
Yeah.
You know that joke?
I do.
So second complaint I get from brothers, brother, I can't cope with this. My wife talks too much. Perhaps, do you not talk at all then? Because if you don't talk at all, she's probably filling up the gap. Or maybe you've stopped talking because she talks too much. That's number 2. Number 3, we don't know how to resolve our conflict. So we'd rather not talk about it.
Right.
That's it. Those are the 3.
These are the 3 main reasons.
I get. I'm sure those are other issues. But I think the most important one here is emotional unavailability when it comes to the husband in terms of communicating his emotion, or the other, too much emotional communication going on from the wife or the husband for that matter, and it's just drowning me. I can't cope with this. It's too much. Or the third, we don't know how to resolve our emotional conflict in communication.
What if your partner is not willing to work on their childhood trauma and cannot recognize it in an argument? Okay, I think it's part of communication here.
Yeah, but the person is unable to, because it's painful. Batul, really think about it. It's painful for your partner to recognize their childhood trauma. It's so painful that they don't want to go there. And unfortunately, you being married to them, you're at the receiving end of that behavior. What do? Well, there is only one way. Do you know what that way is? Give them the ultimatum. Really sorry, Mr. Husband. If you're not going to be able to deal with it, our relationship cannot go very far. This relationship has run aground, just like that massive ship. That tanker has run aground
in the Suez Canal.
In Suez Canal. You have to, it's a good analogy. Massive tanker has run aground. 300 ships have also been circling in the Mediterranean on this side and that side for the last 5 days. What do? They had to unearth so much sand from underneath that tanker. They were pulling it with their towing ships. They were doing everything possible to maneuver it. But the trauma is so big, nothing is changing. If your relationship gets into such a run aground situation because you're not dealing with your trauma, it is going to be like that massive tanker not moving anywhere. It will sink. Eventually, it will all collapse. You need to deal with it. So my sister, Batul, the point that you have made, if your husband is not willing to identify and deal with his past trauma and it is affecting your relationship and you've done everything possible, give him the ultimatum. Really sorry, I'm going, you deal with it. And if you are not going to deal with it, then I'm not coming back. I know it's a very, very tough thing to say, but some husbands need that wake-up call because they will not wake up otherwise. They don't understand the impact of their behavior. Or even the wives. They don't understand. Husband and wife, we all carry trauma.
Yeah. And I guess the question here is, how long are you patient? How long are you supportive? And our benchmark, what is the benchmark? If it's giving you more misery, because you see there is, and I remember us when we were going through difficulties, it takes time. I know everything takes time. My stuff was taking time, your stuff was taking time, but there is something about the support that you give each other. There is a blessing in the support itself. Even though it's a tough situation, if your misery is bigger than the blessing that you feel, that it's moving forward, then that's the line that you draw. You can't be sitting in the same marriage for 15 years and nothing will change.
Some people think you have to. You don't have to, brothers and sisters.
You don't have to, because if it's giving you more misery, you're not running away from a problem, but this is not your responsibility to fix. My stuff you can't fix. I can't fix your stuff.
And this could be a solution, because the divorce is allowed, because it could be a solution, but it is not the first solution. And if people are not willing, then what can you do? There are a couple of other questions that come up. How do you deal with bad language in an argument? Well, do you know what you do? Is get your partner to
my grandmother.
Get your partner to do a mouthwash, gargling with some bleach.
I think we need to tell the people the story. I had a grandmother who gave me one advice before I got married. She said, "Look, you will be." She never saw my husband.
Oh yes,
before.
I remember that one. Yes.
So she said to me, "The only advice I would ever give you, my granddaughter, is that whenever you are angry with your husband, just put some water in your mouth and don't swallow it until the argument is over." So
but this is a very good advice.
Hold on, let me finish.
Hang on, I just want to praise that advice.
I know, but let me finish on what it can do to you. So. Of course, I never took it because I just thought, what kind of a submission you have to practice. And I know, because my grandmother was a very peppery person. She would fight and she would go with my grandfather. But they had a really interesting, beautiful marriage for many, many years. So then when we got married, I said this in one of the gatherings to the sisters. I think we were talking about in a big gathering. And one of them actually went home, and she was also quite peppery. So she said, "Okay, I'm going to go and try this, because we tried everything. I argue all the time. So let me just try the water." She put the water in her mouth. They were arguing. And then she called up a couple of days later. She said, "Look, I tried it. I just couldn't deal with it. I spat it on his face when I was arguing."
She was so angry that she could not keep the water in her mouth. She spat it on her husband's face. How terrible that must have been, huh?
Yeah, but it's something to do with bad language.
I understand.
I think it's to do with boundaries of you.
Bad language is here.
Yes. But the words come out because there's something else is happening.
Because you are used to these words. Either you have heard them being used by your parents, or you've normalized them and you use them yourself at your own private space. Brothers and sisters, foul language is not acceptable. The sunnah of Rasulullah is, when you swear at somebody, that swear word is thrown up towards the heavens. The angels grab it and they throw it back at your parents' face. So If you are insulting somebody, you're insulting your parents. If you're swearing, I'm talking about insulting by swearing. If you're swearing at anybody using bad language, actually you're doing it to your own parents rather than yourself. Just think about it. Would you like somebody to swear at your parents? No. Why do you swear at somebody then? Don't use bad language. Don't use foul language. Use decisive, precise, clear, emotional language. No problem, but don't swear.
Let me give you a practical suggestion here. So there's something called neuroplasticity, which is the brain's capacity to be able to deal with things and to be able to mold ourselves. Whatever we are wired for, we will be doing things, just like when we learn how to drive, we will do it automatically. So when you swear and your arguments are full of swearing words, you have been doing this, your body is used to it, your mind is used to it, so you don't even notice that it's happening. Now, for you to get a different result, you need to start unwiring and rewiring the conversation so it doesn't go down the same route. Each time the person says a swear word, you stop the communication. So I will come back to you when you don't scream, when you don't shout, when you don't use swear language. That's not human communication.
Rasulullah said something very beautiful. If you're angry, change the situation. If you're standing up, sit down. If you're sitting down, lie down. Why? Change the environment. So if you actually withdrew and left that person to calm down and came and carried on later on, you'll probably get a very good outcome instead of being triggered or triggering the other person. Or yourself, instead of hurling abuse at your partner, calm down. What are you going to gain by hurling abuse? You know, it is an indication of your small-mindedness, your brain's capacity not to process. That small-mindedness that you have. Your swearing is the indication of your small-mindedness. We've got lots and lots of points coming through. Somebody asked earlier on, how do you keep your marriage interesting even after 30, 40 years? People say, well, you know, brothers and sisters, that in itself would be a discussion of our own topic of its own.
Long term.
How to keep your marriage spiced up, if that's what topic could be, inshallah. But for today, let's keep on talking about the problems that we have. Nargis says, you can't read on the screen, Nargis, of course. You have to go to my Facebook page or YouTube channel to be able to read the comments. So go to Facebook page, that is my name, Ajmal Masroor. You'll find me there, and the live show is going on there as well as on YouTube. You can see them, and it's there that the people's comments can be read. You can't read them on my screen because this is our screen.
Askarini said, assertive doesn't mean rude. Absolutely. You have a communication problem, for example, if it's someone who is swearing, let's just go back to that example, you have to be assertive and say, I am not discussing it while you are swearing.
Yes.
And you have to keep, this is a very, very important point, you have to rewire the relationship so you don't go down the same route over and over again. You actually have to start doing something differently to get a different result. It's just like when you're driving. Sometimes you are so much on an autopilot that you didn't even realize where you are going or how you are going about it. So,
and this in itself is a problem. So brothers and sisters, may I recommend that you start rethinking your ways of working. Hannah gave an example of how our brain's wired. Try and rewire it. Find a different route, and that needs practice. So start by using good words. Even when you're angry, don't use foul words. Even when you are upset, don't go down the route of abusive words. Think about using good words, but firm words if you want to. Decisive words, no problem, but you don't have to be rude. You don't have to be obnoxious. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to use filthy language. You don't have to be really use swear words to get your point across. Some people say, well, what is swear word to me may not be swear word to somebody else. It doesn't matter. Universally, it is accepted that some language should not be used. And you know this because you don't use it in front of children.
that's right.
Anyway, let's go on and talk about how to communicate effectively, better, and more decisively when people come to me. So, for example, when people say, my husband is not available to talk emotionally. Why are men so afraid of talking about emotion? Maybe that should be a topic. Why are men so afraid of talking about emotion? Because we are taught and trained from the day we are born, be a man. Man don't cry. Man is strong. Man don't show their weaknesses. Man must be like this. Man must be like that. It sounds like I need to be a lion in the jungle. It's impossible. Men can't cry. I remember still. Don't cry. Men don't cry. What kind of a man? Man up. Don't be a woman. These are really terrible statements. These destroy the concept of normal human emotional expressions. Because if I've been told, if I cry, I'll be coming across as weak. I'm not like a man. Man don't cry. Girls cry. It doesn't really give me a good start to life, does it?
No. And you know, we talked about it last week, how this is very toxic for the psyche of a man, or for a woman as well.
Yes, of course, you're putting women down.
Exactly. So it's something that emotional fluency that we don't actually have. There's no gender. It's not attached to any gender. Emotional fluency has to happen for everyone. We need to be able to express our emotions in a way that makes us feel that we are healing from a conversation instead of pushing it down, because they will come back. Emotions are very interesting because they always come back through the back doors or the back windows. They find a way back.
Some people say women cry very quickly and men don't cry. That is also another myth. That's not true.
No.
Many men cry, many women don't cry. Many people have all sorts of traits. Yes, generally speaking, we see in the society women are more expressive with their emotions. We see that because they're comfortable with it. That does not mean they're more likely. Just men have been conditioned into an environment where they don't feel comfortable in expressing their emotions, and therefore they withdraw, they hide, they pull back, and they go into their own seclusion to be able to shed a few tears. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was very expressive with his emotions. He would come to the mosque and companions would see tears flowing down his eyes, and they would ask, Ya Rasulullah, why are you crying? And he would say, I'm so delighted by this verse that Allah has revealed, or I'm so upset by this incident, or I'm so unhappy, or he was very expressive, tears, smile. You could see all of that in his face. And if our Prophet is your example, and he could express his emotions, what makes you think men don't express their emotions? Emotional availability makes your marriage work or not work, right, Anna?
Absolutely, absolutely. If we are not emotionally fluent, and the danger of that, don't forget, you're passing it down to your children.
Yes.
If they don't see their father and their mother being emotionally fluent, they see abusive parents. That's exactly what they will be doing in their own homes. They will have a very strange and conflicted relationship with emotions. They will not be able to be fluent about their own life as they go along. This is not empowerment. This is actually disempowerment for children.
Debilitating the children.
It's debilitating.
And when they grow up and they start behaving like this, then unfortunately somebody would say, oh my God, what kind of parents did these people have? Sadly, it comes back to you again. And sadly, what kind of parents did this person have, it's not something uncommon. It is very common, and I've seen it before. So brothers and sisters, may I recommend that you reconsider your position with emotions. If you think men don't cry, I would like you to go and cut an onion and start crying.
Oh yeah.
Cut an onion and start crying. Show people that you can cry. When I say show, I'm talking about your wife, that she should know that you're emotionally available. Do you understand? Emotional intelligence is being aware of your own emotions, identifying them, naming them, knowing how to manage yours and other people's. This is called emotional intelligence. We are all emotionally not that intelligent, sadly. Even if our IQs are very high, often our emotional intelligence is very low. And we need to change that particular behavior. Okay, good. We've had lots and lots of people who are commenting today. Any other points and problems people are having, do share with us. We are also, of course, plowing through some of the behind the scene things that happens. One of the biggest problem I find in my counseling space is that when a couple have checked out of that relationship, they lie about it.
Right.
I can see that one of them has already checked out. In other words, they've given up. They've resigned from this relationship. But they pretend everything is working.
Right.
The pretentiousness is a problem. The deceit that comes with it, the cheating that follows. I'm not talking about cheating with somebody else. You're cheating with yourself. Why are you in a relationship from which you have resigned?
Right.
Right?
You've given up.
You've given up. You've gone. You're not there anymore. How do you expect that relationship to work? Whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. I've had many couples who have come to me and said, you know, brother, my husband has resigned from this relationship, or I believe my wife has resigned from this relationship. He or she is just in it because there is children involved, or there is asset, there is a house, there is money, and he doesn't want to lose any of that, so they're just here, buying time. What are you buying time for?
I had a couple not long ago where, very related to this, is that they decided they will go for a divorce, but the man kept coming back and forth, and he said, oh, shall I go back? Shall I try it again? Shall I try it again? You have to really think about the mindset. Are you going back with a clear indication of I'm going to make it work? Because if you do that, you will really be able to make it work. But if you go, let me just go and try if I can make it work, that's not a decision. You've already checked out. You don't really want to make this work, but you are just trying to pull the last straw, confusing the children, confusing your ex-wife or still wife. You have to be very clear about your decision.
And confusing your own soul.
Your own self. But you have to be very clear of why are you in this relationship? if it's hard, am I staying because I have got attachment to other things? And if I do, I really want to make it work?
Yes. Brothers and
These
sisters.
are the three questions that you have to ask yourself. Because if you decide all three yeses, yes, I want to make this relationship work, then you will overcome unsurmountable difficulties, because you will be able to work through together. But when you are waddling, where you're not quite sure, when you are hesitating, shall I not, it doesn't give any impetus for you to do the work, and you will not go beyond the comfortable. You will stay in your comfort zone, and nothing ever is going to change.
Right, we have got a very interesting question there. You may want to read that one.
Assalamu alaikum. How does one deal with infidelity in a marriage? Experts say it's different how a man and a woman react to infidelity. We talk a lot about infidelity committed by men, but almost never about women who commit it. How should a man deal with infidelity in marriage? Wonderful question, thank you. And for those of you who are experiencing it, it's probably one of the hardest things to deal with. So
we should talk about it at a separate show. Infidelity.
We should, but I think we should also recognize that this is one of the issues. So there are two kinds of infidelity issues that people come to us with, I think. One is when it's blatantly obvious and it's happening, it's happened already, and the other partner doesn't know what to do with it, and they start rearranging their marriage, reevaluating whether they should stay together or not. But the other one is, I think, is the secrecy, the addictions that men or women, addicted to certain kind of things. That how do we deal with that? Because that's
you're opening up a whole show. Let's do that later. Infidelity with emotions, physical infidelity, emotional infidelity, infidelity via internet, via telephone, social media, etc. We'll talk about that another time. I believe we should. But just to say to this person, how do you deal with it? Yes, men and women both get hurt. Men and women both are responsible for infidelity, not one. And just to apportion the blame on men and women not doing it is not true. The man who is having infidelity, he is having it with a woman. He's not doing it on his own, is he? So there is a woman involved somewhere. So it's a fallacy. It's a complete myth that men are responsible for infidelity. Both are. Now, when I say responsible, I mean they need to take responsibility for it. It's your choice what you do with it, whether you want to stay in this marriage or you want to walk away. If you want to stay in this marriage, then you need to write down a contract, a solid contract, a punitive contract, which stipulates what happens. If he or she does it again, they must lose something substantial. Unfortunately, human beings are like that. When you put a financial figure to their loss, to their behavior, and there is a penalty, it's like me driving. If I know by jumping a traffic light I'll get 3 points and £300 fine, I will think twice. If I've been stopped for speeding once, I'll think twice next time before speeding, because of the penalty that comes with it, because of the fine that comes with it. Infidelity is something so grave that it requires a preventative, punitive measure. So if you're going to come back together, draw a contract in which you say, if you do this again, you lose your house.
Or I'm walking.
Or I'm walking.
Or I'm done.
Now, you're walking or done doesn't give him any punishment. He gets away with it, or she gets away with it. They need to lose something substantial.
But how do you lose a house when you are in a marriage?
So, for example, if I have put deposit to this house, for example, and I bought it with my wife, in example, and if I'm responsible for that behavior, and I lose my portion of the share of the property because of my behavior, I'll think twice before I go and do stupid things. Of course I will.
Right. But so, walking out wouldn't be a punishment enough?
How would it be?
Because you leave the person, and then they can deal with their own lives. And
yeah, but that's already, they did that by infidelity. So you're actually saying, yeah, go ahead, carry on, good luck. They have not paid anything. They need to really pay.
So you're talking about consequences.
Consequences.
Really. The consequences of the action. But also, I think the other thing I want to say to this person who is asking the question is, of course, infidelity can have a different impact at different levels. When you are married for 2 years, it's very different. The impact of it is very different when you are married for 20 years, because the context is different. And I think when you are married for 2 years, you ask yourself the question, do I want to make this marriage work? That's the number one question you have to ask yourself. After 20 years, the question is different. What do we need to change in our marriage so infidelity doesn't happen again? At the beginning, you have very much less experience together. So there's a difference of where you are in your marriage. And depending on the time, depending on your intention of what you want to do with this marriage, different questions have to be asked. I think it's important that we talk about this, because infidelity after 20 years, I don't think is the same impact than infidelity after 2 years. After 20 years, you've got a house, a life, and children together probably, and you you have built up into half of your life with that person, infidelity will hit you very differently. And then, of course, we have the question of once a cheater, always a cheater. Do we believe that? Is it true that once someone cheats you?
I know you're opening up the whole conversation, and we don't have the time.
I just wanted to give some thinking points.
3 minutes left before we finish the show today.
So we will do one about infidelity, inshallah.
There's a brother here who has asked a question. It's very important as well. I just want to read it. Didn't want to put my name down, but personally, I feel I don't receive the affection, intimacy from my wife. Each time I approach her, I feel like she pushes me away. And when it comes to intimacy, I feel that she sees it as a chore. Right now, I've given up touching, hugging her. Anyway, that's my bit for the show. We'll talk about intimacy and how to rekindle it if you want, and how to look into it again in a different light. But brother, thank you very much for sharing that. If it's missing in your life, it's something that you need to talk about, and we need to deal with it, inshallah. Book, back to you. We're going to finish our program in about 3 minutes. So before we finish our program, as we do ritually do, talk about our book. Please do buy the book. I really recommend it. Those who have bought the book, they've recommended it too. And if you haven't yet recommended to somebody, please do. Buy it, recommend it, read it. It will save your marriage. I am telling you, it will save your marriage. And many people have said that it saved their marriage. If somebody else's marriage needs it, give it to them as a gift. It's on our book, our website, of course, barefootinstitute.com/bookstore, and Hannah's book.
Don't forget, Eid is coming, so this will make a really good Eid gift.
Yes, and Ramadan gift.
Yeah, the Eid, Eid al-Fitr gift. Mine is Heartsmart. It's to do with emotional intelligence. My journey is from my head to my heart, not to my toes, as my husband says all the time. So it's packed with emotional intelligence stuff. It's neuroscience, it's how your brain works, how emotions develop, what we do with emotions, all sorts of really interesting stuff. So you can buy both of them on the website, thebarefootinstitute.com. And in the meantime, until next Sunday.
Before they go, I've also launched my Quran program as part of our Barefoot programs. So in the month of Ramadan, I have done it last year. I do a program called 30 Rules of Life. Using the Quran, draw 30 rules that you can live by, you can learn about, you can practice, and you can transform your day-to-day behavior, and of course, be somebody who achieves a lot more than you have done in your life so far. So get to know the Quran, learn 30 rules of life with us, inshallah. You'll find that details available on our website very soon as well. It will be coming there. But in the meantime, may I recommend that you find this information on my Facebook page. I've already put it up. It's called 30 Rules of Life. We will be sending you messages as well, and you can book it from my Facebook page at the moment. But also the website is available. It's called 30rulesoflife.com. Please go to 30rulesoflife.com and book your program. It's £5 a day, so 30 days. That's £150, and you can buy a ticket for the entire family. Whole family can sit together and learn together, and that's what they did in the last Ramadan, alhamdulillah.
What's the timing? Remind people.
5 to 6. 5 o'clock.
5 to 6 every
finishes
day.
At 6 o'clock, and it's consistent. It happens every day, and you learn 30 rules. When we did it last Ramadan, one person joined who was a non-Muslim. At the end of 30 days, he became Muslim.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. So the transformation is very visible. Please do join us, 30 Rules of Life. Go to Barefoot Institute's website and buy the book, and keep us informed. If you need any help and support, where can they get in touch with us?
You can send us an email to info@barefootinstitute.com, or you can just go on our website, and then you can fill in an inquiry form which will come to us, and we will deal with it either by me calling you directly, or we will send you an email.
Anything you like from us: marriage counseling, pre-marriage counseling, post-marriage counseling. We also offer support for families. If you are wanting to get married, you can get in touch. You just email us from our website, barefootinstitute.com, or info@barefootinstitute.com. Until next time from us, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.